What's up, guys? It's Toad back with you. Hopefully, you guys had a good Christmas yesterday. My Christmas was decent. It was a mixed bag, but I was able to put out that Christmas Eve / Christmas video for you, so that got out. I had 3 plays yesterday. They went 2-1. Hopefully, if you got Hawaii in the college basketball Diamond Head Classic there or whatever it was. Hopefully you got that number when it was the better number, because I had -2.5. I played it like 2 days ago, and the line I think went off at 3.5, and they won by 3. So I mean, that's the difference in getting the better number, I guess. So that one was a win for me. The Houston Texans was obviously not. Those NFL games yesterday were absolutely disgusting. I mean, nobody should have been subjected to either of those games. The Steelers game looked like it should have been a pretty good game early on. And then, dude, I mean, yeah, Kansas City outplayed them, but the refs were also helping Kansas City all over the place, man. It was just crazy what was going on there. I mean, they had, there was one play where the Steelers had a touchdown called back on a hold. And it's like, maybe it was a hold, but you can call hold, like you can call those very selectively. And then the Steelers threw an interception in the end zone on the next play. So that screwed them over. There was one, the most blatant one was the George Pickens one, where he was not tackled. He was not down. He was running along the sideline, and Kansas City couldn't tackle him. And they blew the play dead. Oh, his forward momentum was stopped. No, it wasn't. He got through both defenders and he took off. He had a clear field. He was going to get a touchdown on that play. And instead it gets whistled dead. So he only gets like a small gain on it, and they wind up not converting on 3rd down on the next play, and they have to punt. It's just insane, dude. I don't even know what to say about that. And there were some other calls in that game too that were just like, you got to be kidding me, man. I mean, you can go look. I mean, it was all over Twitter. I'm very frustrated by that. I didn't have money on that one, but I'm more frustrated in the Houston Texans just not even showing up. I don't know what that was, because they had no offensive scores. They only scored on a safety. Like, really? I don't know. I don't watch any of the game. I don't know what happened in the game. I know it was 10-2 earlier in the game. So like, all right, this is in range right now. We could get a competitive game here. No. And my NBA Christmas game won with the Minnesota Timberwolves with the outright win. So that one, I was right on my NBA lean on the Phoenix Suns as well. Kind of wish I played it, I guess. My Boston Celtics suck ass, and they lost as a big home favorite. I told you I would not lay the points with the Celtics in that one. Man. Charles, what's up, man? Happy, day 2 of Christmas. It's Boxing Day, man. Are you anti-Chinese or something? Stop Chinese hate, man. I think it's also Kwanzaa, because the Dallas Mavericks just tweeted out Happy Kwanzaa. I'm like, is Kwanzaa even a real holiday? I mean, you can figure out what I think the answer is to that. Let's talk about today's slate. I do have 2 plays today that are both in the NBA. We have no NHL. They're still on holiday break. No college basketball, which college basketball is kind of on like a holiday break right now too. A lot of these students are off for the holidays. College basketball will mostly be back on Saturday for the most part. There are a few games tomorrow, but like I think the only games tomorrow in college basketball are like big teams against cupcakes. I think there are only 2 or 3 of them. And then Saturday, there's not even a full slate, but Saturday we will be back to having some college basketball. Correct. That was a win with the T-Wolves. I'm like slightly below even right now. There's a chance that if I have a run in the last 5 days here, I could still have a winning year. It's been a bad year. Correct. It is not a real holiday. All right, let's talk about today's slate, man. The NBA is really where you're going to find most of what you can do today, I would say, because the bowl games today are mostly garbage, in my opinion, which I will talk about all 3 of them. And we have, there is an NFL game, which is also not a very good NFL game tonight for Thursday night, because it is Thursday. NBA is where I got my money. I got 2 plays in the NBA here. I don't know if there's a whole lot to talk about here. Thunder Pacers could be an interesting game, I guess. Of course, none of the teams that played yesterday on Christmas are playing today. I mean, at least I think that's the case. Those Christmas teams get the day off today. I don't think any of these teams are on a back-to-back here. I could be wrong about that. I don't think so, though. Oklahoma City and Indiana, they both went into the break. They both had a few days off now. They're both off for the holidays. They both went in on a win streak. But the thing is, do you think that having that extra time off is going to disrupt that winning momentum? Well, if that's the case, that's going to affect both teams because both teams went into that break on a win streak. Oklahoma City did it against an injury depleted Orlando team against Miami, which I think this is the last game that Butler played, which I'm going to talk about Butler in a second. And then they beat Washington. Who cares? Now they're at least starting a road trip. And I think Oklahoma City probably has a little bit extra motivation here because they're one of the best teams in the NBA and they were not scheduled on Christmas. So they're probably like, hey, how did you guys leave us out of the Christmas slate here? So I think Oklahoma City might be a little bit extra motivated for that reason. Indiana, I mean, they are sitting at 500, which I talk about as like a little bit of a motivator sometimes because you don't want to be below 500. Of course, they were below 500 and they reeled off 5 straight wins, but it was against, a Philadelphia team that's kind of been in disarray, even though they are getting their players back. Pelicans, who have massive injuries, and they did beat Phoenix. Sacramento, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit, who I don't think is really that bad. And then they beat Golden State, all of them on the road. So now they're returning home from a road trip and having extra time off, disrupting that momentum and coming off a big win over Golden State. So I do think it looks like Indiana's in the worst of these two spots here, even though obviously they're not going to overlook Oklahoma City. But tomorrow they also have to play Boston. They play Boston twice, and they're going to be looking for revenge against Boston because Boston, of course, was the team that eliminated them from the playoffs. Oh, no, wait, they already got revenge. What am I saying? I forgot they beat Boston earlier this year, so never mind. But that's still another big game. But they're not going to overlook Oklahoma City. But I think the Boston Celtics is actually a little bit of a bigger game to them, although I think the Celtics are going to be in an angry mood there, which I'll talk about tomorrow, but it may make sense to lay the points with the Celtics in this upcoming game here. Celtics are not going to want to let this stand, losing 2 straight games. And you do remember yesterday, the Celtics did have Jason Tatum coming back from injury after he missed the previous game, so injured player theory spot, kind of. So, I mean, I think the Celtics are going to be in a pissed off mood, and because they lost to Indiana earlier this year, I don't think the Celtics are going to overlook Indiana in that spot. And it's going to be Indiana to back-to-back off this Oklahoma City game. So I think my Boston Celtics get a nice scheduling spot there, in my opinion. But anyway, this game leaned to Oklahoma City slightly. They're up from 5 to 5.5. 87% of tickets, 90% of the cash. I haven't zoomed in here. So they're public, but it does look like some of the money coming in on them. That's right. Yeah, Charles. Let's go Celtics. Celtics have 7 losses now or something. Like, they're looking like they're not going to get the 1 seed, which is not good. They better just be able to win on the road in the playoffs, man. Which, I mean, they proved they could do that last year, so hopefully that is the case. The Hawks, I will say, are kind of off of they're off that big win over Minnesota. I had the Hawks going into the Christmas break there, where, of course, I thought Minnesota, I'm knocking my mic all over the place. I thought Minnesota was in a bad spot, and they were going to look ahead to the Christmas game. I think it was a sandwich spot too, because they were coming off playing Golden State or something. So I like the Hawks in that one. I don't really like the Hawks in this spot coming off that win, but it does look like the money is coming in on their side. They're up from 6 to 6.5, 62% of tickets on them, 80% of the cash, or excuse me, 62% of the cash on the Hawks and 80% of the tickets over on the Bulls. So it looks like the Bulls are actually a public underdog in this game, which seems strange to me. I wouldn't expect that to be the case. I mean, what public bettor is looking at this game and coming in and being like, oh, yeah, give me the Bulls here? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know the Hawks' record isn't that good, but the Hawks have looked pretty good at times, beating a lot of good teams this year, so I don't know. I'm not going to touch that game, though, of course. Most of these other games are pretty ugly-looking games, really. The New Orleans Pelicans are coming off taking Denver into overtime, which is a game I lost playing Denver in that one. I thought it was a bounce-back spot for Denver. They did get out of there with a win, but that was a tough game for the Pelicans. But they do have a couple days off now for the Christmas break to try to recollect themselves. Houston went into the break on a win streak, although they won against some pretty bad opponents in New Orleans, Toronto, and Charlotte. But it was this New Orleans team. They did just blow them out. So does that mean New Orleans is going to show up in this game? That's why I'm not playing this game, because on the one hand, New Orleans just played a really tough game against Denver in their last game, but then they're playing a team that just massacred them the last time they played them in Houston. So I can see that going either way from a situational standpoint. Rockets are down from 8.5 to 7.5 in this one. big road favorites, 77% of tickets. Obviously, the public wants nothing to do with the Pelicans here. 88% of the cash on the Rockets as well. And with New Orleans, you got to look at what the injury statuses are here. I mean, it looks like Trey Murphy is a game-time decision. I don't know. I think he has been playing. They're still going to be without Zion and Brandon Ingram. So, I mean, this Pelicans team, they just haven't been healthy all year. So, very tough to figure out what you can expect. Urjo, what's up, man? Slam Dunk Ernest. Is that like Ernest, the Jim Varney character? I haven't seen that. I don't think it's not Ernest does a slam dunk. That's what those titles are like. I only know Ernest Saves Christmas, man. And whatever the Halloween one is, and there are a couple other ones. Tua playing for the Hawks. I don't really understand that, why that would be the case, but all right. Yeah, I mean, Tua, looks like his team is not going to make the playoffs. I'll tell you that. All right, let's get to my actual plays here. I have 2 plays. One is Miami plus 1.5. This is a game where Orlando, what has Orlando done the last couple of games? They played this Miami team in this same arena back on Saturday, and Orlando won the game by 7. But look at what happened in the fourth quarter of this game. Orlando outscored Miami 37-8 in the fourth quarter of this game. Miami was winning this game in the fourth quarter by, I think, 21 points, 22 points or something, whatever it was, something like that. And then Miami completely stalled out, had maybe the worst fourth quarter in history, and somehow Orlando won that game. Miami was absolutely destroying Orlando in this game. And if you want to talk about, well, Butler is injured now, well, yeah, but he was injured in this game too. Butler didn't play in this game either. So that's kind of out of the equation here. I don't think he's playing tonight. He was listed as questionable. It looks like he's doubtful. So I think Miami's really going to be pissed, man. They should have won this game. They absolutely dominated Orlando this entire game and then fell apart right near the end. So I think Miami's in like a quick revenge spot where they're going to be pissed off. Miami's going to have the adjustments to make here. And the line is the same. You're getting 1.5. It's Orlando 1.5 again in this game. So the line hasn't changed since this one. No reason that it should, really, but Miami's going to be the team that has the adjustments to make. And like I said, Miami was completely running away with this game. So I think it's a very misleading final result just because the fourth quarter was just ridiculous. Neither team shot particularly well from 3 in this game. The game looks like it was close statistically for the most part. So not a whole lot to take away from what the stats looked like in that game. But then Orlando, what did they do after this game? Oh, yeah. They beat Boston after that. Not only did they beat Boston, but look at what happened in this game. And this was on the 23rd. So they did go into the holiday break after this. But still, what happened in this game? Oh, yeah, Boston was beating them by like 15, whatever. It was more than that, I think, at one point in this game. Boston was running away with it into the third quarter. And then Orlando made a huge comeback in this game and overtook them and won, pulling off a huge upset. And Orlando's doing that with a depleted team still without Banchero and without Wagner. And they're without Wagner's brother, too. So they have 2 Wagners. Everybody knows Franz Wagner is the star player there, but they also have Mo Wagner, his brother, who I think both went to Michigan. They're both now hurt. Mo is hurt as well, which is less of an important injury, I guess, because he doesn't play as much, but he's out for the season. Franz Wagner's not going to be back for a while now. Banchero, I think, is going to be back first. He's not going to be back yet either. So this Orlando team, they're doing this with a depleted roster, man. And it's like, how long can they keep this up? I think Orlando is in a letdown spot right now, man. As much as they probably want to beat the Heat again, they just beat the Heat. They just had that huge comeback, 2 huge comebacks in a row, coming off a monster upset over the Boston Celtics, the returning champs. And now they have Miami again, who they just beaten. Tomorrow they get the New York Knicks, who the last time they played the Knicks, they got embarrassed, losing by 15 points. That was a game where I was on. I won on the Knicks in that one, I'm pretty sure. So that's a pretty big game for Orlando up next. I think they might overlook this Miami team, man. And they went into the holiday break, which can kind of stall out their momentum a little bit they had going into that break, even though it might kind of help them rest a little bit. But still, this looks like a very bad spot to me for Orlando. It's kind of like a zigzag revenge spot for Miami. It's a letdown spot for Orlando. I think it might be a sandwich spot because I think that Knicks game is bigger than this game against the Heat. The Heat, They went into the break with a win over Brooklyn, but I think that's actually good because that kind of broke a losing streak that they had where they lost, overtime to Detroit. They lost by 7 to Oklahoma City. No real shame in that, especially without Butler. So Butler played, or no, Butler played in this game too. I think he played through the 20th, and then Butler missed the game against Orlando and the game against Brooklyn. But their other players are stepping it up, man. And this Miami team is not that bad without Butler. So Miami was able to win against Brooklyn in their last game and win easily. So I think that is a good win just because it's not a good win. Beating Brooklyn doesn't really matter as far as, it's Brooklyn. They suck. But the reason why I think it's a good win is because it breaks this loss streak. Whenever you have a win like that, it gets that monkey off your back. All right, we finally won without Butler. Let's move on. We're not going to have him in this game either. Miami's going out to start a road trip, even though it's just Miami to Orlando here. But Miami, they know what happened in their last game against Orlando, man, and that was without Butler as well. They had the game completely in hand, and they blew it. So I think Miami's going to be ready for this game, man. Much, much better spot for Miami, in my opinion, for all these reasons. Butler, I believe, is not playing, but I actually think that you probably don't want Butler to come back in this game because I think if he does, you're going to get a reverse injured player spot where Miami's going to have to regain their chemistry a little bit, and it's going to kind of throw a wrench into their lineup again if Butler does come back. And also Butler, I think he's been saying that he wants a trade out of Miami. So does Miami really want to play with a guy that doesn't want to play with them? Probably not. So I think it's better if Butler does not play in this game. The line seems to be indicating he's not because it's right at the same place where it was in this other game. Miami is going to be the team that has the adjustments to make, like I said. So I like all of that. So, I don't think there's anything else to say about that. Just keep an eye on it and make sure Butler is indeed not playing because he is listed as a game time decision, estimated return tonight, but I don't actually think that's going to be the case. If you look at, I looked at RotoWire a little while ago and it seemed like he was doubtful to play. So that's the way I'm going here. The Magic, it looks like the cash is on the Heat here. Magic sitting at 1.5, hasn't really moved much. Public is only going to come in on the Magic because they see, well, the Magic just beat the Heat. You're asking me to just take them to win. Of course, they're going to beat the Heat again. They just beat the Celtics too. So this is easy, right? No, obviously I don't look at it that way. 67% of tickets coming in on the Magic who have the better record. 75% of the cash, however, on the Heat. And, Heat without Butler, I think the Magic, their injuries are more substantial, man, with Wagner and Banchero both out, both Wagner's out. The odds makers are telling you that the Heat are actually the better team in their current state by lining the Magic at only 1.5. So contrary to what the records and what that last game might indicate to you, both lines in the last game and this game, Magic only being 1.5 on their home floor, the odds makers are telling you the Heat are actually the slightly better of these two teams, even without Butler, because those Magic injuries are so significant. So again, give me the Heat. For all those reasons, the market read looks good for it too. Give me Miami in this game. Oh, Hawks Tua, I get it. Yeah, my fantasy team is named Hawk Tua, and I was the 1 seed going into the playoffs. I lost by 0.7 points, which I think I already ranted about on the show in the semifinals. And now I'm going to lose the 3rd place game, so I'm going to be completely out of the money. All I need to do is win 1 of 2 games. I lost Alvin Kamara. I'm fucked, dude. My opponent had the Ravens defense yesterday. Come on, man. It's just, I don't know what to do. I'm fucked in fantasy. I can't win in fantasy. My opponent had Kelsey, I think, too. So he's got a lot of points right now. I haven't had anything going for me. Yeah, give me the Heat is right. An unfinished Ernest movie called Ernest Saves the World Trade Center. Yeah. Ernest Does 9/11 is my favorite. 0.7 points, I know. And if any small thing went a different way in that matchup, I would have won, and I'd be in the money and in the final right now. Up, I think, against the commissioner of the league, who I beat 2 weeks prior to the semifinals because I had a bye in between those two. But I lost Alvin Kamara. My team is massively injured. I have no wide receivers now. Jalen Waddle injured. There's a chance I still win and take 3rd place, but it's not likely. I'm fucked. I hate it. I fucking hate it. Because I missed the playoffs the last 2 years. This is my main league. It's a big money league we've had for 20-something years now. I've made the playoffs probably at least 2/3 of the years I'm in the playoffs, and I've moneyed a pretty decent amount, man. Like I mean, I've done pretty well in this league, even though it is a super competitive league. And I've won the league, I think maybe, I don't know, I want to say 4 or 5 times maybe over that 20 whatever year span, which is pretty good for a 12 team league, I would say. My run recently has not been good, and I'm not doing well here. Yeah, 2/3 is good when, yeah, I mean, half the teams make the playoffs, so making the playoffs more than half the time is pretty good. All right, and then my other play is going to be on the Sacramento Kings -6. So let's dive into this one here. We got the Kings up from 5.5 to 6. They look a little bit public with 67% of tickets, with 96% of the cash coming in on the Kings. So it looks like the money is coming in on the side of the Kings, in agreement with me, which I agree with that. Obviously, I agree with myself. I think the public is going to look at this and see both teams sitting at 13 and 17. Kings, I know they've been bad at home, 6 and 11, so I don't love that really. And Pistons have been okay on the road, 8 and 9. That's not bad. Public is going to look at this and think, wait a minute, both of these teams are 13 and 17. Pistons have been playing well recently, so it makes sense to take the points with the Pistons, right? This looks like a large line to lay. Again, I don't think so. I think the odds makers are telling you the Kings are better than they've looked so far, man. This is a Kings team that has been kind of in and around the playoffs the last couple of years. This is not a bad team. At the very least, they can definitely put up points. And this Detroit team, I mean, remember just last year with a very similar personnel, this Pistons team had one of the worst records in the NBA. Obviously, they're improving. But, I mean, I just think that this is a spot where I think Detroit maybe looks a little bit better than they actually are right now. And I think Sacramento certainly looks worse than they actually are. And what's the situation here? Well, Detroit just pulled off back-to-back upsets at Phoenix and at the LA Lakers. They were able to pull off both of those wins, huge upset wins for Detroit there. And then they went into the holiday break. So again, like I said, that's kind of a momentum staller when you have big wins, like you're on a little bit of a win streak going into a break like that. I don't think that's great. You want to keep playing, right? So they probably went back home for the holidays or whatever. I don't know what exactly they did. So now they are starting a road trip. I know a lot of times you refocus starting a road trip. When you have a small break like that and it's around the holidays, I'm not really sure, man. I think it might be a bit of a distracted spot. I think it's still kind of a letdown spot coming out of those 2 big wins. And who do they have up next on Saturday? They got the Denver Nuggets, which I think is going to be an opponent that draws your attention more than a below 500 Sacramento team does. And when you're coming off beating LeBron and you beat Durant the game before that, I think they both played in those games. Huge wins, man. So I think this is kind of a sandwich spot, the way this sets up for Detroit. And then you look at Sacramento. Sacramento, they've been underperforming, man. And people are going to look at this and see, wait a minute. Sacramento just lost at home twice to the Lakers. And Detroit just went in and beat the Lakers on the road. And you're telling me you're giving me 6.5 points with Detroit here, even though Detroit just beat this LA team in LA, which went into Sacramento and beat Sacramento twice. So it looks, from the public's perspective here, if they do this transitive thing, it looks like an automatic play taking the points with Detroit here, right? Like, what are you talking about? Detroit just won at the Lakers, and the Lakers just win in back-to-back games and beat Sacramento both times. Again, this is not the way that you should handicap. Every game is an individual situation. Sacramento, I mean, they played Denver really tough coming into that first game against the Lakers, so I can kind of explain why they lost that first game. I can't really explain why they lost the next game to them, but Sacramento, they were a favorite in both of these games. They were like a 6.5 point favorite, I think, in the first game against LA, and then like a 4.5 point favorite, which I think was too low in the second game. They still didn't get it done. I'm kind of surprised they didn't have the zigzag there. But then what did they do after that? They had to play a back-to-back, third game in 4 days. Really not a good rest spot at all. And looking into the holidays after that, they got blasted by Indiana. So they went into the holiday break on a bad loss streak, losing games where I think they were favored in all 3 of these games here too. So that's pretty ugly, man. You get upset 3 games in a row. I think that holiday break is going to help them, like, forget about those losses. Now you come back out of the holiday break. They actually had 1 extra day off too, compared to Detroit here. I think they're going to be focused on this game, man. I think they're going to be pissed, even though, yeah, I know they have the Lakers again up next and they want to beat the Lakers because the Lakers just beat them twice. But when you're on a loss streak like this, I don't think you're going to overlook any team right now, man. So I like the way this sets up a lot better for Sacramento here. So give me Sacramento I'm going to lay the points with Sacramento -6 in that one. So those are the two plays that I got today. Let's go look at college football bowl games here, which we have 3 of them. The first one is up at 2 p.m. Eastern time, which is what is this game called now? Something ridiculous. The Game Above Sports Bowl, which is the one at Ford Field. This game has had different names throughout the years. I forget what it was even called last year. It was what was this game called? I don't even remember what it was called. I remember it being like the Motor City Bowl back in the day, but this is the bowl that's in Detroit. It just keeps changing their name. This is Pittsburgh and Toledo coming into this game. And the thing about this, man, I mean, you see this line has been moving. It has moved now. This has been a significant move down from 10 now through the 7. It was basically sitting at Pittsburgh 7 for a long time, and now it's actually gone down to the 6.5. So I think there is significant money coming in on the Toledo side in this one. 50% of tickets evenly split, 56% of the cash on Toledo, though. So the public, to me, I think they're going to come in and play the ACC team against the MAC team because this is Pittsburgh. They started 7-0 to start the season. You know, they were ranked. But Pittsburgh, I mean, this team has fallen off a cliff. Like, they've given me no reason to trust them at all. Whoops. I mean, Pittsburgh started off the season 7-0, and then they finished the season losing 5 games in a row. They just got completely derailed, and they haven't showed up in any game basically since then. I mean, they showed up against Clemson basically and played tough against Clemson. And then after that, nothing. I actually bet against them in the SMU, Virginia, and Louisville games, and I won all 3 of those bets, fading Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh, I mean, on the one hand, maybe they're going to be a little bit angry and maybe want to finish off their season with a win, but I don't know, man. I mean, it looks like this Pittsburgh team is just, to me, it doesn't look like they really care about this at this point. When you start the season 7-0 and you're looking like, you're thinking like playoff and whatever, and then you just completely fall off the rails and fall apart and you just don't show up. To me, it looks like a disinterested Pittsburgh team coming into this. Pittsburgh, if you look at their bowl history, I believe they did win a bowl last year, even maybe. I don't think it's been that long since they won a bowl. So, or no, they weren't in a bowl last year. Maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago they beat UCLA in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, which is that one in El Paso. I don't know, whatever it's called now. Pittsburgh, again, are they really going to care that much? Oh, you're thinking playoffs midway through the season, and now you're in the Motor City Bowl, whatever the hell it is now, the Game Above Sports Bowl, whatever. In in Detroit, and you're playing against a MAC team. Are you really going to be that excited for that game? I don't really think so. And you look at the opt-outs here. We can look at the opt-outs for these games here. Pittsburgh, I mean, they got a lot of guys hitting the transfer portal here, way more than Toledo. Toledo has actually very few players hitting the transfer portal here. So Toledo, to me, seems like they want to show up in this game and play. So obviously, based on what I'm saying here, I do lean to taking the points with Toledo. I'm not actually going to do it, though. But Toledo, I mean, they finished their season with a loss at Akron, and that's a really ugly loss. So I think at the very least, that's such an embarrassing loss that I do think Toledo, they'll be excited. They get to face an ACC team in this bowl game, and I think they will want to show up for this game, in my opinion. Like I said, they have very few guys leaving. They have the least amount of transfer activity almost out of like any of these bowl teams. I think they're going to have a full lineup here. Their quarterback Gleason, who played most of the season, I think he's going to be there in this game. Pittsburgh, I mean, they're losing Yarnell, who is their backup quarterback, but Holstein, I'm pretty sure, is back in this game. But the thing about that is that Holstein, the fact that he's coming back in this game, I mean, it might tell you one thing that, well, maybe that means that Pittsburgh does want to show up and win in this game. Maybe, but it also means, I mean, Holstein hasn't played since November 9th. So, like, is he going to really be in game shape when he hasn't played for that long? I mean, Yarnell came in and did pretty well for him. Pretty sure, Yarnell is in the transfer portal. I'm pretty sure Holstein is back in this game, so he is their starter, but he wasn't necessarily that great, man. He's going to, again, have to get back in game shape and get used to playing in an actual game environment again. So I don't love that. So, I mean, based on all this, it almost seems like I should take the points with Toledo, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know if I can quite get there with that one. I'm trying to be really selective with the bowls, but I do lean to Toledo in this game, though, as far as the points are concerned. Total is down from 50 to 48.5. We do see some money coming in on the under. 56% of tickets on the over, 69% of cash on the under. The under might make sense as well in this game. It depends. I mean, if Pittsburgh's offense is in a little bit of disarray right now with Holstein having to get used to playing again, maybe that'll be the case. I don't know. I mean, the total is tough to gauge. I think the strongest way to play this game would be to try to still find a 7 on Toledo and take the +7. The game above sports ball. Yeah, game above must be some sports related company. I don't even know what the company is. I think you're right. It was the Little Caesars Bowl for a little while. And Little Caesars Pizza is terrible. And I think this was actually the Little Caesars Bowl for a little while. What was it last year though? Now I'm like, it's bugging me what this game was last year. I can't even remember what the game was. I think Bowling Green was in it last year. So let me just look at it because it's angering me. I'll talk about Bowling Green in a second, but because they are in a bowl today as well. They're in the night game. The Quick Lane Bowl, that's what it was, which I don't know if Quick Lane, I think Quick Lane is a tire company, so it kind of makes sense in Motor City. Quick Lane makes more sense, to be honest. So that was this bowl game up through last year. It was the Quick Lane Bowl for a few years. So that, all right, not bugging me anymore. All right, next bowl game up is the Rate Bowl. Literally, this game is just called the Rate Bowl now, which is out in Chase Field in Phoenix. I forget what this game used to be called as well. This game has changed names repeatedly. It was the Guaranteed Rate Bowl for a couple of years up until last year. And now it's just the Rate Bowl. This is the most boring. I like these funny bowl names, man. And this is the least funny. This is the most boring bowl name that I've ever seen pretty much. This is Rutgers and Kansas State. Rutgers, I don't know what to think about Rutgers. This is actually a difficult handicap in this game. Rutgers, I mean, they started the season 4-0, and then they lost 4 games in a row, and then they won 3 of their last 4. I mean, it's very difficult to figure out who this Rutgers team is. I mean, I think most of their guys are going to be in this game with Kaliakmanis, however you pronounce his name. I think he's going to be there for this Monon guy. They're like primary running back. I think these guys are going to be there in this game for Rutgers. They do have a couple of wide receivers that are not playing in this game, which aren't listed here, but I think a couple of their top wide receivers are actually hitting the transfer portal and maybe going to be NFL draft stock or something like that. So Rutgers is going to be without a couple of wide receivers in this game. Kansas State has the most significant loss here, which is Giddens, their running back, who was basically their best offensive player this year. Giddens is not going to play in this game. I don't know if he's hurt or if he's like entering the draft or whatever and skipping this game, whatever it is. He hasn't hit the transfer portal, but I wish this opt-outs tracker would update and show you. It does show you injuries. It doesn't show who's like skipping for like draft purposes though. But I thought that Giddens was injured coming into this game, but I don't know. But I'm pretty sure he's not playing in this game. So that's kind of a big hit to Kansas State's offense. I think Johnson will still be there. It seems like mostly Kansas State's offense is going to still be intact as well, but that Giddens loss is pretty big for Kansas State here. Kansas State is still lined as a 7-point favorite, up from 6.5 to 7. I mean, they're definitely the better of these two teams, but how disappointed is Kansas State going to be? I mean, Rutgers, even though they started out 4-0, I don't think they expected really much better than this. I mean, they got into a bowl. Rutgers won a bowl last year. I was on Rutgers last year in the Pinstripe Bowl. They beat Miami, or Miami basically was playing with an interim quarterback in that game, and it was a close game. Rutgers was able to get that win for me there. So Rutgers won a bowl last year. Kansas State also won a bowl last year in the inaugural Pop-Tart Bowl. Kansas State is the only team so far that got to eat the anthropomorphic Pop-Tart, which I'm going to talk about more whenever that game happens. It's the creepiest bowl game ever. So both of these teams won bowls last year. And I was going to look. Toledo, I think Toledo hasn't won a bowl in quite a while, man. Like, I think Toledo, the last time they won a bowl was in like 2016 or 2015 or something like that. So Toledo, I think, is going to be motivated for that reason as well, to try to get a bowl win for their program. So I like the points with Toledo in that game. I think the fact that Holstein is coming back for Pittsburgh again, I think, is an injured player theory spot almost in that game, even though that's a little bit different when it's a bowl game, because it's like either you care about winning this bowl or you don't. And that's like hard to gauge, really. Anyway, back to this game. We do see 59% of tickets on Kansas State. Kansas State's obviously going to be the public team here. They are the better team, but 60% of the cash taking the points with Rutgers. I I mean, I would lean to the Rutgers side taking the points here just because that is the way the money seems to be flowing a little bit. And Kansas State, I mean, without their running back, who knows what their offense is going to be like. But how motivated is Kansas State here, man? I mean, they had higher aspirations than Rutgers did, which is what I was just alluding to. Rutgers, I mean, getting to a bowl, that's like pretty much the best that they expected, I think, coming into this season. So I think they've achieved their goal. I think they wanted to get into a bowl, and now I think they want to win the bowl game. Kansas State, I mean, they were ranked throughout the season up until the very end. Like basically, I think up until the last week of the season, it looked like they could still get into the Big 12 championship game and may even be fighting to get into the playoff because whoever was going to win the Big 12, of course, was going to get into the playoff. So I think Kansas State is the more disappointed team here, man. I don't think they wanted to fall into the Rate Bowl, which is just stupid. And what was this game before? That's going to bug me too. Like a few years ago, this bowl out in Arizona, it was called something else. It's bugging me now. I can't remember. I remember back in the day, I don't know, like I remember Kansas winning this bowl way back in the day in like a blowout. I don't know. My mind is, I'm a stroke victim, man. So I'm losing my mind now at this point. But whatever this bowl game used to be called, it is now the Rate Bowl, which was the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. But it was something more. It was some better bowl name before that. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I lean to Rutgers in this one. I lean to the under in this one as well. It's sitting at 52. I've seen almost no movement on the total. 76% of the tickets, 93% of cash on the over. I think it looks tempting to play the over, but with all these offensive opt-outs and injuries and whatever the case is, Kansas State without their running back, Rutgers without a couple of their wide receivers, I think maybe this total should be adjusted a little bit, and it looks like it hasn't been adjusted at all to account for that. So I don't understand why the total hasn't adjusted at all. So to me, it looks a little bit too high in this game. So I would lean to the under in this game as well. I think Toledo is a stronger play than anything in this Rate Bowl, though. This Rate Bowl, I don't want anything to do with it. And then the 68 Ventures Bowl, I think maybe the strongest bowl play is actually to lay the points with Bowling Green, although if you miss the 7, I mean, you've lost that number, obviously. Bowling Green was at 7 for a little while. I think they're mostly at 7.5, though, so not much of a difference between 7.5 and 9. It was 8.5 a little while ago, so you might still be able to find 8.5. So this game is tonight. That Rate Bowl is at 5:30 p.m. This game is at 9 p.m. This game, so that Rate Bowl is in Phoenix, Arizona, so not a whole lot of I don't think there's really much of a locational edge as far as those first two games are concerned. This game, I mean, maybe arguably Arkansas State has a little bit of a locational edge in this game because it's in Mobile, Alabama, so it's a little bit less travel for their fans, but Bowling Green is the way better team in this game, man. And to me, it looks like both these teams are going to show up in this game. I mean, there are some opt-outs, so there are no really significant opt-outs as far as I can tell. I think basically the starting offensive players, the skill players, are still playing in this game. It seems to me like both teams probably want to show up and try to win this bowl game, but I think Bowling Green, maybe it was Bowling Green and not Toledo. I might be mistaking the two. I think Bowling Green hasn't won a bowl game since back in like 2015 or something like that. So I think Bowling Green, I mean, they've been in multiple bowls since then and lost. They lost very close in that Quick Lane Bowl last year against Minnesota. So to me, I think Bowling Green actually is going to want to win this game. That would be my opinion, even though I know Bowling Green was fighting to try to win the MAC and whatever. But I think Bowling Green, I mean, they'll be excited to just go somewhere warm and play a bowl game and try to get a bowl win for their program. That's my opinion. Arkansas State, they won a bowl. I think they won a bowl last year, if I'm not mistaken. They've won a bowl much more recently, at the very least, I'm pretty sure. Within the last few years, I'm pretty sure they've won a bowl game. Maybe they lost their bowl last year. I forget. Yeah, they lost the Camellia Bowl to a MAC team, by the way, to Northern Illinois, and they're facing a kind of similar MAC team in this game. So I don't know when the last time. So they haven't won a bowl for a little while too. So maybe both teams will show up here. I don't know when the last time they won a bowl was. It might have been back in like 2019 then. Yeah, they beat FIU in 2019. All right, so both teams, it's been a while since they've won bowls. So it seems like both teams probably will show up here, but the late line move looks like it's moving. It looks like this line is continuing to be on the move. Seeing some significant movement on Bowling Green here. They do have 69% of the tickets, 66% of the cash. But again, when you see the line moving late, like on the day of like this, I think this is actual money coming in. I don't think the public is coming in and like heavily betting Bowling Green this morning, especially when it's really early out in Vegas, like 8 a.m. They're not going to the books at 8 a.m. in Vegas and being like, oh yeah, I want to bet the 68 Ventures Bowl. That's not happening. So I think this is actual money coming in on the Bowling Green side. I agree with it. I just don't think I can lay a price like this. The 7 would have been nice, but again, I mean, these bowls, I know I'm not playing too many bowls, so it's not very exciting, but we'll just, I'll just pass on all these bowls today. But yeah, skip the game. That's what these guys are doing. They're skipping and going right to the draft. The Rape-A-Palooza Bowl for Tower Gang. Yeah, I mean, that might be the name for it. Jeffrey, thank you, man. Hopefully that Miami pick does make sense. So that's going to be, that is a play for me, Miami Heat and Sacramento Kings. So Bowling Green, again, I like the Bowling Green side. I just think that Bowling Green's the better team, man. It's a situation where I think both teams are pretty much intact here. Both teams have their offenses showing up for this game. I think both teams are going to want to show up and play in this game, and then it comes down to which team is the better team. The odds makers are telling you Bowling Green is a significantly better team, and the line is continuing to move up. I agree with it. I mean, Arkansas State, they had one pretty good performance against Michigan where they played pretty close at the Big House. That was a good game for them, but other than that, I mean, they've been not very impressive. They got wiped out by Iowa State, wiped out by Texas State, wiped out by Louisiana. I mean, those are their 3 other like best opponents they faced, and they got hammered by those other 3 teams. So Arkansas State, I mean, I'm not saying Bowling Green is as good as any of those teams. They're not, but still, Arkansas State, not a very impressive resume other than that one really good performance against Michigan. So Bowling Green has faced a much, much more difficult schedule. I mean, they played Penn State to within 7 points on the road, Texas A&M to within 6 points on the road. Both teams lost to Old Dominion. Bowling Green lost to Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois is good, though. And by the way, I was going to mention these opt-outs. It's bad for college football, man, having all these opt-outs. As I keep saying, I think that the transfer portal thing, I think you shouldn't be allowed to hit the transfer portal until the bowls are over, man, because it's just so bad. It sets up for so many bad bowl games where teams don't show up. Because, like, think about it. What were the best bowl games that we just saw this year? Well, it was Northern Illinois against Fresno, that overtime game, the double overtime in that one, and then the Hawaii Bowl, which, by the way, San Jose State should have won. San Jose State outgained South Florida in that game by like more than 200 yards, I think, and they still didn't win the game. It was crazy. Like, South Florida had 6 first downs in the entire first half, and they still wound up winning. I mean, that's just insane. Statistically, it looked like it should have been a runaway win for San Jose State. I didn't see the game, so I don't know what happened, but I know that game went into 5 overtimes. So again, what was the common thread in those 2 games? The Potato Bowl with Northern Illinois and Fresno there, and the Hawaii Bowl with South Florida and San Jose State. The common thread was all 4 of those teams showed up to play in those games. They didn't have very many opt-outs, so mostly the teams wanted to show up and play. And you actually get a good bowl game when that happens. Go figure. So Bowling Green, again, I mean, they faced a way more difficult schedule. And then, they lost they had a chance to get into the MAC championship, and they lost their last game to Miami, Ohio. I mean, Miami, Ohio, no shame in that. Miami, Ohio got into the MAC title game and lost to Ohio. Bowling Green, they're one of the best teams in the MAC, man. I mean, I would argue that Bowling Green is probably actually better than Ohio and maybe worse than Miami, Ohio. I think Bowling Green and Miami, Ohio are the 2 best teams in the MAC. So Bowling Green, they're the way better team over Arkansas State. They're much, much more battle tested. I mean, when you play that tough against Penn State and Texas A&M, I mean, those are powerhouse teams there, and you play that well against those teams on the road, no less. This Bowling Green team is definitely good. So I like the Bowling Green side here. Again, I just don't think I want to lay this number. But out of these games, I think the Bowling Green side probably is the strongest. If you're at least make sure that you lay less than 10 if you're going to lay the points with Bowling Green here. Total is up from 51 to 53.5. I don't know about that. 83% of tickets, 95% of cash on the over. So it looks like maybe some actual money's coming in the over. I'm going to stay away from trying to play the over here because Bowling Green, they have a pretty good offense, but they also have a good defense. So I could see this game maybe not being that high scoring. It's very difficult to say. The total, I don't have a good read on at all. But what I can say is that Bowling Green, I mean, these guys are all going to be there for Bowling Green in this game. I'm pretty sure Basilak, their quarterback, pretty good quarterback, more of a pocket passer. And then they have their rushers with Stewart. Mostly it's Stewart as their primary rusher there. These guys are all going to be in this game, I'm pretty sure. So Bowling Green, very balanced offensively, which I like because Arkansas State is actually a less balanced offense as well. Arkansas State, I mean, they've had a couple of games with decent rushing numbers, but they're mostly a passing offense, I believe, with Rayner in there. So we'll see what happens. And Rayner has been their top rusher a couple of times. So he's a dual threat quarterback. But Arkansas State, I think they're definitely more of a team that likes to throw the ball. Bowling Green, better defensively, much more battle tested. Overall, the better team, and they have a much more balanced offense. So Bowling Green, in my opinion, I think is the correct side in that game. Now the NFL game. I am not touching this NFL game either. Thanks to the schedule makers again for this one with Seahawks Bears is the Thursday night game in Chicago. Seahawks are up from 2-4. So it looks like some actual money has come in on the Seahawks side, which I don't necessarily disagree with it. I mean, the Seahawks are obviously going to be public. I mean, the Bears have lost 9 games in a row, and it looks like the Bears are just packing it in for the season. But when this is a Thursday night game and you're hosting it, is that reason for the Bears to finally show up for a game? It might be. When you're hosting a primetime game and you have a chance to play spoiler, I mean, even though it's not a rival, but, you have a chance to play spoiler against anybody. You have a chance to not embarrass yourselves in primetime. That might be motivation for the Bears at the very least. But the Seahawks are obviously the team with something to play for here. Seahawks are still trying to get into the playoffs. They're still trying to win their division. So the Seahawks obviously have a stronger motivation here, but is it enough to lay points on the road? I don't want to do it. The Seahawks, again, it looks like the money has moved in their direction, up from 2-4 with juice. 80% of the tickets and cash right now in the Seahawks. So these Seahawks are also public. So if you do like the Bears, you're at least getting a primetime home underdog. But in this case, I don't think it's a strong one, man. I mean, if you're playing it, then you're hoping that the best case scenario is that both teams are going to be motivated here. And the worst case scenario for you, if you play the Bears, is that they still don't care about this game. So I think if you're playing the Seahawks, you at least know that the Seahawks they basically need to win this game. Although the problem is the pressure is on for the Seahawks when it's a must-win situation almost like this, and you're laying points on the road. That's a little bit dangerous with a team that has too much pressure on them. The Bears, at the very least, can play loose here because I know their season is over. But the Bears have just been ass. I mean, firing Eberflus, firing him did not help this team at all. Their defense has actually gotten worse since then, so I don't know what the deal is there. But this Bears defense, pretty good to start the season. They seem like they just don't give a shit anymore. They've completely fallen off a cliff defensively, and shockingly, it's been the defense that's been worse for the Bears than the offense, which is crazy to think about. The offense actually hasn't been that bad, and the offense has been better than you think, at least. Caleb Williams actually has not been that bad. It's kind of been just like the offensive line has really been the problem. Like the Bears allow the most sacks in the NFL. Caleb Williams, despite being under all this pressure, has actually not been that bad. And Caleb Williams has not thrown an interception since mid-October. He hasn't thrown an interception for 8 games. Even though they've lost every single one of those games, somehow Caleb Williams has not thrown an interception. Although I think they're also kind of limiting the amount of throws that he makes. But still, and that's just kind of a crazy stat that you wouldn't expect. But maybe the odds are not in his favor. Maybe the law of averages is not in his favor, and he's finally going to throw one. Hopefully, because I think I'm playing the Seahawks in fantasy this week. The Seahawks defense, God help me. But I think at least you're going to see the Seahawks be able to rack up some sacks because the Bears. Not only is the Bears' offensive line bad, but the Bears lost their left tackle and left guard last week, and their center is already out. So the entire left side of the Bears' offensive line and 60% of their offensive line is now injured. So that's not going to help with the Bears already having a terrible offensive line. So that could wind up being the difference in this game. The Bears' offensive line just gets destroyed in the trenches, and the Bears' offense really just falls apart because of that. I could see that being the case here. It is possible that the Bears struggle offensively for that reason. If it happens, I don't actually think it's going to be Caleb Williams, even though I don't think he's good. I think it's going to mostly be this game could wind up being won in the trenches for Seattle there. And Seattle, they haven't really been that good defensively, but maybe that Bears offensive line injury situation could be the recipe, the cure that they need, really. So that's what's going on in this game. I mean, the total's up from 41 to 42. 74% of tickets, 55% of the cash on the over. So it looks like way less of the cash than the tickets are on the over, but I'm not sure that I'd want to play an under here, really, even though I just said I think the Bears offense is probably going to struggle here. But then again, the Seahawks defense hasn't really been that good at stopping teams. So I could kind of see this game going both ways as far as the total is concerned. I don't know what to do with this game, to be honest. I mean, obviously, I'm not playing this game. This game is a very difficult read. I had the Seahawks last week, and honestly, they should have won the game. They had the lead with 3 minutes left to go in this game, and they wound up pushing my +3 on this against Minnesota. So, yes, they are coming off a tough game, and it is a quick turnaround time. And I always say when you're not that familiar with this venue, which Seattle is not, quick turnaround time, having to play on Thursday after playing on a Sunday and going on the road, not the easiest spot. So I'm not going to come in and lay the Seahawks for that reason as well, just because short prep time here. The whole question is Chicago going to give a shit about this game? That's really the question. And of course, Seattle has a huge game up next against the LA Rams. But if Seattle loses this game, that game might not matter. So that's the issue for Seattle here. It's not like they can just overlook this game completely and then play the Rams and beat them, because Seattle already lost to the Rams once. So Seattle absolutely needs to win this game to even have a fighting chance. So I think if the Rams win this week, I think that's it. I think if the Rams win, they win the division. So, I mean, that's the thing about what the Rams situation is here. I believe that's the case because they have the tiebreaker against Seattle. So we'll see how it all goes. So, I mean, I don't think it's a look ahead for Seattle here. They can't afford to overlook anybody right now because they need to win these last 2 games to have a shot at winning the division, man. So, and then I don't know how the wild card shapes up, but I think it's unlikely they're going to get a wild card. So Seattle cannot afford to overlook this game. So a lot going on in this game, man. And then the Bears have been better at home. I mean, all of their wins have come at home. They're 0 and what was it? 0 and 7 on the road, I think. So they're 4 and 4 at home. And whatever that would wind up being. Yeah, I think it's 0 and 7 on the road. So the Bears, all their wins have come at home at the very least. They're all earlier in the season and all clustered when they were actually still trying to win. Of course, they all came. They're actually a 4-2 team, so all 4 of their wins came at home and in the first 6 weeks, and they haven't won since. But again, they did have a bunch of tough matchups against tough divisional opponents and stuff. So who knows? This is their final home game, and they get to play it in prime time. So it might actually be a spot where the Bears actually show up for one more time, even though they do have Green Bay up next. So they do have this sandwiched in between divisional games. But again, you're hosting a Thursday night game. Could be reason enough for the Bears to show up. So very, very difficult to figure out this game. And Caleb Williams has actually been a lot better at home than on the road as well. His numbers are a lot better. I think he's only thrown 1 pick all year at home. So again, more shocking lack of interception numbers on the part of Caleb Williams, but he does take a ton of sacks. So he doesn't put the ball in dangerous spots, but when you're getting sacked that much, you don't even have the opportunity to really like throw it. Like maybe he's just holding on to the ball too much too. So that's a problem as well. If you hold on to the ball too much, you're taking too many sacks. That's not really a good thing either. So who knows? This game, again, very difficult read. That's going to do it for me, man. I'm belaboring that too much. My plays today, one more time, both in the NBA, Miami +1.5, Sacramento -6. That's going to do it for me. Being selective again, and hopefully can be on the winning side here these last few days and hopefully get back on the winning side this year. It's going to be close. I'm going to have to basically win out throughout the rest of these days to have a shot at that. It's possible, but we'll see what happens. That's going to do it. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Good to see you guys again. Charles, Urjo. I mean, who else was in here? And Jeffrey. I don't think I've seen Jeffrey before. I apologize, Jeffrey, if you're not a newcomer. But thanks, guys, for all hanging out. That's going to do it. I'm Tower Gang Toad. You can follow me on Twitter. I just ratioed Tim Pool yesterday. That was a ridiculous ratio. He's getting into it with Top Lobster. Speaking of Top Lobster and myself, you can find us on the Tower Gang Podcast. Patreon.com/Tower Gang to throw some support to the most offensive comedy podcast in existence. You You get live pre-show, post-show with us. You get to hang out with us in a mailbag. Hang out in our mailbag. No, hang out in the Telegram with us, and you get to submit mailbag questions, which we likely won't read because we only read Mark Vestibule's Tower Game. We're going to have an episode this week, most likely, and I don't know if it's going to be tonight or tomorrow night, but be on the lookout for that because I think we are going to be live with a new episode at either 9-11 p.m. tonight or tomorrow night. So keep an eye on that. Again, that's going to do it for me. Tower Game Toad. Thanks, guys, for hanging out, and let's have a good day after Christmas because I refuse to acknowledge whatever else today is. Peace out, guys.